You're not alone.
I know, it's crazy.
Not only did people hear our stories, but they said, yeah, we hear you and something does need to change.
In order to create sympathy for Evan Rachel Wood, this trailer, as well as the documentary, relies on manipulative emotional strategies as opposed to tangible and irrefutable evidence. As stated by the scholar Jonathan Gray, trailers play a key role in setting expectations and become a key contributor to a film or documentary's overall meaning, and can be central to an audience's reaction to the film or documentary. Let's see how this trailer's images, words and music all work together to create sympathy for Evan Rachel Wood in the most manipulative way possible.
It's always really hard for me to look at photos of myself from before.
We start out with an intimatization strategy. The purpose of this strategy is to allow the audience access into the protagonist's supposed intimate sphere, in this case in form of a private photo. This way, it's the filmmaker's hope that the audience will identify themselves with the protagonist, as it's understood that people find it easier to identify themselves with characters they can relate to in terms of values, appearance and personality. Private photos and confessions move this process along, in theory. This short clip is an example of alignment. Alignment is when we as viewers are physically and thus psychologically aligned with certain characters, like we're walking right behind them or sitting next to them. We see what they see. Here we're next to Wood, looking at her in the rearview mirror. A rearview mirror is also a symbol for a past-future contrast, where someone is going versus where they've been. So, in a single shot, Wood's past is emphasized as an important point in the documentary. Therefore, it's no surprise that the next shots contain more private photos, more of the same intimatization strategy.
I've kept this journal since I was 15. I made a new friend.
I'm here today to talk about Brian Warner, also known to the world as Marilyn Manson.
Irving Goffman distinguishes between front stage and backstage. The routines of our daily lives, going to work, chatting with colleagues or neighbors, shopping, dining, etc., follow certain rules and expectations. In other words, there's a script or a norm behind front stage behavior, and we immediately recognize when someone isn't following the norm. Front stage is what we do when we know that people are watching. Backstage is what we do when the world isn't looking. It can be people's more relaxed and informal behavior with family members. Some people might be completely different from their public persona, their front stage role. In modern times, TV shows have integrated people's backstage more and more. Presumed backstage, that is. We see people crying and confessing to the camera. This backstage is exactly what intimatization strategies are made of. So Wood reading an old personal confession is her allowing viewers into her presumed backstage. Once again, this is alignment. Like we're sitting and she's pointing right in front of our noses. So far, the electronic music has had a floating, dreamy quality to it, corresponding to the happy photos of Wood. The screeching sound, however, foreshadows a negative climax and ends with a bang. The bang initiates so-called dramatic silence and indicates who the viewers are supposed to recognize as the antagonist, Warner.
I'm here today to talk about Brian Warner.
In the photo, he has a firm grip on Wood's shoulder, as if she's his possession. Surely it isn't hard to find photos that would make him look bad. The scary look has always been a part of his brand and message. The point is that the filmmakers could have chosen more flattering photos, but unsurprisingly, they haven't. With an exaggerated, creaky voice, Wood herself distinguishes between front stage and backstage without naming the exact concepts.
I'm here today to talk about Brian Warner, also known to the world as Marilyn Manson.
She differentiates between Marilyn Manson, the front stage role, and Brian Warner, the backstage, real person behind the role. Wood and the filmmakers know that his front stage role has made a lot of fans. This makes it difficult to attack. Therefore, it's about attacking his real identity. Next, Wood's brother makes the same distinction, reinforcing what Wood says in order to create coherence. That all the self-proclaimed protagonists are saying the same thing. The same distinction is also repeated in a graphic.
He studied how to manipulate people. He groomed her. He's a predator.
Everyone was looking at Marilyn Manson and they weren't looking at Brian Warner.
This photo, which looks like it was made in character and not like a real photo for friends and family, has Wood looking sad and Warner looking scary. However, any photo, video or soundbite will be used against the antagonist in modern-day documentaries that are becoming more and more indistinguishable from fiction. Wood's mother makes blanket statements about Warner, and the verb she's using,
he groomed her,
is problematized by the fact that Wood was an adult and thus, from a legal and factual standpoint, responsible for her own actions. The mother and brother are seen in a homey environment, which connotes something pleasant and familiar, unlike the antagonist.
Numerous women heard my story and they knew exactly who it was. I realized that I wasn't the only one that this had happened to. You're not alone.
I know, it's crazy.
Still, not a single logical argument has been made. This is all pathos. Pathos is used to persuade the audience to make them feel the way the filmmakers want them to feel. The filmmakers make deliberate choices to evoke emotion. All the filmmakers rely on are images of people coming together to the sound of a deep piano tune that connotes reflection. Like her family, Wood's interviewed in a homey, relatable environment, and she's seen holding another supposed victim as she repeats, "You're not alone," for the camera. I say repeats because it's been the slogan of Wood's campaign, so much so that it sounds like what it is, a campaign.
This is how it works. This is what pretty much every survivor that it tries to expose someone in a position of power goes through. I'm not doing this to clear my name. I'm doing this to protect people, and they're alone. They're so alone, and so or they feel like they are. And so I would just say that you are not alone. You're not the only one going through this. And I felt very alone. I thought I was the only one. And you'll hear that a lot from survivors. You are not alone.
Heavily appeals to emotion, designed to make the target audience feel good. If the filmmakers win the audience's emotions, the audience will believe almost anything the filmmakers tell them, and the audience won't rely on logic and irrefutable evidence, as opposed to meaningless anecdotes, to judge who's right or wrong. Amber Heard tried this tactic to no avail.
He has the window down, he's smoking, and he's howling like an animal. Everyone in the car, I'll never forget it, everyone just froze. No one did anything. And I too was like...
Also, Wood has a strong self-interest in coming together with other self-proclaimed victims in order to strengthen her own case, so the community we see in these images might not be so heartfelt and spontaneous as the images and words will have us believe.
We were outside of the statute of limitations. We had run out of time and nothing in our evidence could help us.
Statistically, a lot of victims take 7 to 10 years to even recognize that they were a victim of this.
This statistic gives Wood an excuse as to why she didn't say anything for so many years. Also, the timing should be taken into account. Wood went public with this in an environment full of allegations. Still, given this statistic, the filmmakers will have us believe that this was a natural or organic process, that it took Wood this exact number of years to come to terms with what she claims happened to her. What sounds more logical, however, is that the climate at the time got her and others to go public with their stories. My story, as they like to call it. Not to mention the amount of money behind this documentary and campaign.
I became an activist fighting for victims and survivors.
The music changes in order to paraphrase Wood's presumed heroic acts. The target audience is expected to think that these are powerful images and forget the complete lack of substance. Substance comes from actual argumentation and real proof. Therefore, it's quite worrying to see headlines like "It's a wake-up call to us all" and "Wood's courage shines through." Headlines like these are extremely manipulative, as they'll have us believe someone without actual evidence. Who cares about courage? Who cares about being aligned with Wood in emotional shots? Who cares about a lot of people coming together, hugging? In a courtroom, you look at motives, including the economic incentives all these people have to find a scapegoat for their $1 million campaign. And in this regard, Warner is the perfect scapegoat. He looks dangerous, and I remember the first videos that influential, irresponsible, and highly emotional content creators made. These videos were all about his appearance, how his appearance and lyrics automatically made him guilty. This doesn't mean we have to agree with what he says and does. I think many people dislike many of his opinions and taste in clothes. But it does mean that you can't judge a book by its cover when it comes to something as potentially career-ending as this. Also, he has a history of being blamed for societal problems, and it makes him an obvious scapegoat. Next, the deliberate word choice, hugging, and heroic music continue.
Not only did people hear our stories, but they said, yeah, we hear you and something does need to change.
Any bills that will expand the statute of limitations is really important to survivors like us.
Yeah, we hear you is another phrase that the target audience likes to hear. They like to feel heard and that they're not alone, as Wood said earlier. And that's the point. This is all about feelings.
We need to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else.
This is almost the same kind of altruism that Amber Heard failed to convey.
I selfishly found relief in being able to use what I've lived through to advocate for others, to bring light to these issues, to give a voice to people who don't have the voice and the platform that I have.
In order to tone down the strong self-interest, it's important for the filmmakers to highlight that she's doing this for ordinary people as well. A point she exaggerated in her interview with The View that contained a significant amount of humble brag.
I have a platform. I'm privileged. I'm white. I have resources, you know, and like I can't even imagine how alone people must feel that go through this, that do not have privilege, that do not have a platform, that do not have money.
I realized that this is the first time I haven't been doubted or questioned or shamed. This is the first time that someone was really listening. I was like, what is this feeling? And it's this feeling of being believed.
Again, phrases designed for the target audience. We can always recognize a pathos argument by the absence of logic. Like other ads and campaigns, this documentary relies on slogans, catchphrases, and closeness to persuade the audience. Pathos arguments are always exposed for what they are by counter-questions like, so what if it's the first time she hasn't been doubted? So what if this is the first time someone was really listening? Immature, empowering statements like these mean nothing in a courtroom. Still, modern-day documentaries continue to convict the accused before the trial even begins. Even if the accused is acquitted and found completely innocent, he'll never get rid of many people's suspicion, and his career will never be the same. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and click the like button, which always helps. See you next time.